If you're thinking about becoming an aircraft mechanic, you might be wondering what it's actually like when you start out. In this video, we're going to talk about my first 6 months. Hello and welcome to another episode of Grease Monkey Gab, random thoughts of an aircraft mechanic from the commute. If you're new to my channel, my name is Matt, and I recently turned my passion for aviation and working with my hands into a career. Something I always wanted to do, but just never really thought I could. And like I mentioned in my intro, I just completed my first 6 months working as an apprentice under an IA. If you really look into it, if you go the apprentice route, you have to work 30 months under an IA, logging your experience, before you can take your tests to get your A&P licenses. So what was it like for me? I'll put a video up here of what I did to finally get a paid apprenticeship. Because if you're like me and you got a family and a mortgage, going back to school ain't gonna happen. So when you first start out, you're brand new, you're, as somebody called it, just a babe in the woods. It takes you a couple days to a couple months just to learn where everything is. Hardware, special tools, fluids, any of that stuff. But at the same time, you want to prove yourself. You want to show to everyone that you belong there. But regardless of whatever your previous experience was, you really just need to show that you're teachable. And if you're not sure about something, just say, I don't know. I'd say it honestly took a couple months before a lot of jobs just started feeling like routine and really getting down into a routine. And that's probably why I didn't even make videos for my first couple months doing these. I wanted to focus as much as I could on just getting started. Before starting my first day, I remember watching a bunch of YouTube videos, see what kind of tools other people recommended. I mean, I was a Ford mechanic out of high school, but you know, it doesn't all exactly correlate over. So I grabbed some stuff from my garage and my hangar and did some shopping on Amazon and Harbor Freight. Got a fancy new rolling toolbox. Some of it I used and, well, some of it I didn't. But you don't have to worry about that too much. You're working with other guys in the shop, you know, the IA you're working under probably has every tool you could ever possibly think of. They're typically happy to let you borrow theirs until you get your own, and just make sure you put them back where they belong. And when you're first starting out, they're not going to have you doing heavy maintenance anyway. You're probably just going to be opening, closing panels, doing safety wire and oil changes, and maybe doing tires and brakes. There really isn't a whole lot you need for just that. But as the scope of what I was able to do expanded, I would make a list of tools I needed, tools I was regularly borrowing from my IA. After a couple months, I realized, you know, what tools I used all the time and what I really needed. And I recently put out a video explaining all those for you. One of the things I'm really blown away by in these first 6 months is just how much varied experience I've been able to get. You know, I interviewed a few other places and felt like in some of them I'd just be doing, you know, safety wire and oil changes. Or one actually wanted me to be a parts guy and then just maybe come out and assist whenever I could. Now, are you really going to get your A&P in that 30 months? Probably not. Now, I work for a GA maintenance shop that is attached to a flight school and also a Part 135 charter. So that's multiple different experiences right there. And we have a pretty good size hangar, so we can have multiple aircraft in at a time. Some smaller shops may only be able to have 1 or 2 planes at any given point. There's pros and cons of both. But if you're in a small shop that's not even a small field that doesn't even have like an active flight school, you know, there's some experience you're missing out on. I mean, the other side of that is I expect to be working on mostly, you know, Cessna 172s, 150s, Piper Cherokees, maybe some light sports, you know. But with having the 135, well, we're regularly working on Piper Navajos as well. I mean, I personally prefer small, simple, you know, experimental light sport airplanes, but it's been pretty cool to get to play around with some of that bigger, more complex stuff. Your experience may absolutely vary. When you're looking around for an apprenticeship, that's definitely something to consider. Like, what kind of experience are you actually going to get? I've touched on it before, but I've worked on a lot more types of aircraft than I thought I would. And when you get to the end of your apprenticeship, your IA is going to write a recommendation letter to your local FSDO, and it's explaining your experience and time and the different aircraft types you worked on. I don't know what the FSDO thinks, but I think it'd be pretty cool to have as many different types of aircraft on there as you can. Now, if your IA does some training with you, like mine's done multiple sessions on magnetos, make sure you log that too, because that counts towards your A&P. Anything you can get helps. That brings me to my next point. Even at 6 months in, I am already studying for the A&P tests. And it's not just two like you'd think. It's airframe, power plant, and general. And to be honest, the general's harder than I thought it would be. Probably harder than some of those pilot tests too. I'll have another episode coming up on the different resources I use for studying and training, but it's never too early to start that. Just make sure you don't get burned out on it. So all in all, I mean, there's good days, there's bad days, there's pros and cons for sure of, any job, but especially being an aircraft mechanic. But at the end of the day, I'm happy to finally be doing it. When I first started, I just kept thinking to myself, man, I can't believe I'm finally doing this. And even 6 months later, yeah, some of the newness is worn off, but I'm still happy to be doing what I'm doing, and actually working towards something. If you're already a licensed mechanic or repairman, what was your first 6 months on the job like? Let us know down below.